Hi, my name's Claudia Haynes, and I'm the Youth Services Librarian at the Homer Public Library in Alaska. The Maker Club was an opportunity for kids to come to the library and play and explore both high and low-tech projects. So one of the projects that we did, which was highly successful, actually used pretty low-tech tools, and that was a mug in a meal. And you can see here what we used. So we used a variety of ingredients that you can find in the grocery store. Many families already have these ingredients at home. And we used a microwave, something that many libraries already have. And so the idea was to encourage kids to cook from scratch and provide recipes that they could take home so that the kids would have an opportunity to make meals at home by themselves, because some of our kids spend a lot of time by themselves at home, and this would give them an opportunity to create something healthy on their own or for their families. And so one of the meals that the kids made was coffee cup quiche. And we had stations with 3 different recipes, and we printed out the recipes so kids could work on their own or in groups. And they read through the recipe. There were teens and adults there to help if they had any issues. Some of the kids had never cooked before. And so the ingredients that we used were eggs, salt and pepper, cream cheese, Dijon mustard, milk, and bread. And we have some kids that are gluten-free, so we had gluten-free bread and bagels, and then we had ham and onions. And we had some of these ingredients that are not essential to the recipe, but kids could kind of taste and test and try things out and experiment, which was a really great part of it. And we even talked about things about why you cook with salt or pepper. And so kids were kind of fiddling and tasting each other's and trying things that are new. So like any cooking project, we start by washing our hands. So let's wash our hands. And then what we're going to do is prep some of the ingredients. The only 2 things that we needed to prep are cutting the ham and the onions. And this was a great opportunity for kids to get their first try at cutting safely. And so we talked a little bit about food safety. We talked about what ingredients kids already have at home, things that they like, things that they don't. And Olivia is going to go ahead and cut up our ham, which is going to be one of our ingredients. And unlike a normal quiche, this isn't going to have a crust, but we do incorporate the bread into it. And it's pretty fun because to eat it, all you need is a mug and basically a fork, which we're also going to be using for whisking. One of the surprising kind of wow moments about this project, what is not only the kids' real interest in the project, but we would have people coming by, peeking their heads in, curious about what we're doing, because there aren't a lot of cooking projects that normally happen at a library. A lot of people check out books about cooking, but not a lot of cooking that happens here. And in fact, one parent walked by and said, "Wow, you are really changing how I see libraries." And another wow moment is that when I went to get supplies for this project, I realized we needed mugs. And so I went to a local thrift store that is run by a community nonprofit that supports victims of domestic violence. And so the money that we used for these mugs actually supports another aspect of our community, which was a really nice element to the project. Awesome work cutting. Okay, so now beyond the cutting and the cutting boards, this project is pretty simple. You need a mug and a fork. And so what we're going to do is kind of work from left to right, just like we read, and add the ingredients. So we're going to start with eggs. And for each mug meal, you only need 1 egg. And you can go ahead and crack it into the mug. Some kids don't know how to crack eggs. Olivia's had a little bit of practice. And so there are no shells in there. But for some kids, we had to poke out the shells or pick out the shells. And then, of course, all cooking projects involve a little bit of math. So we needed to add 1.5 tablespoons of milk. And so there was conversations about what the difference between a tablespoon and a teaspoon. Nice pouring, very accurate. And a little estimation went in there. This is like cooking. This is not, doesn't need to be perfect. It's a little bit different than a baking project. Okay, so now we're going to add some salt and pepper. Oh, thanks. One of the other elements about this project is that kids wanted to, they were so inspired by the project, they wanted to actually make some of these meals for their parents who came in to pick them up. One kid actually made his meal to go, and I said, oh, sure, you can take the mug with you. The look on his face was so shocked that someone would just give him a mug with a meal in it. And so I saw him actually get in the car with his family, and his mom was also very surprised. Okay, so now we're gonna whisk that up so the milk and egg are all blended together. And again, for some kids that came to the program, some of the cooking vocabulary was new. And so that was pretty fun for them to start integrating that vocabulary into what they were doing. And then we're gonna add a little seasoning, salt and pepper. Some of the kids really wanted to measure out the salt and pepper, but I like to just add a little bit here and there. Olivia here is gluten-free, so she's going to add a little bit of gluten-free bread, which we had on hand. And I'm going to add a quarter of a bagel. And this kind of gives the crust effect that you would find in a traditional quiche. And then we're going to add a teaspoon of cream cheese. For kids who don't like cheese or cream cheese, they didn't have to add it. It makes it a little bit more creamy. And again, kids, the program lasts about 2 hours, so kids had the chance to try multiple recipes or even multiple versions of the same recipe. And those of us who were on hand to help out got to taste many of them. We're going to kind of mix this in together, but cream cheese is not very mixable when it's cold, so that doesn't matter. And then we're going to add a little bit of the chopped ham. And again, kids added as much as they wanted. And then some kids really like cheese, so we had shredded cheese on hand. We also had the onions that kids could add. We'll add the onions at the end. Okay, so now what we're going to do is the best part. We're going to make the magic happen. And we're actually going to microwave the mug meal. And if you have multiple kids, 10 to 15 kids, it's great to have 2 microwaves on hand. We have one to show you today, but we're basically going to cook these one at a time. They take about a minute to cook. So very, very efficient process. So we'll put that mug in there. Close it up, and we're going to press this express button for 1 minute, and we're going to let it cook. All right, let's give this a whirl and see what we got. All right, Olivia, do you want to give it a taste? Okay. And some kids had never had quiche before, and so this was kind of a fun experience, and multiple parents, after we ran this program, thumbs up, multiple parents told me that the following Saturday, we run these programs on Thursday, the following Saturday, multiple parents woke up to quiche in a mug for breakfast, and what parent doesn't love that?